They say the human body is capable of incredible things, that we can run farther, endure more pain, and lift heavier burdens than we ever imagined. But if that's true, why do most people quit before they even start? Why do we retreat into comfort, tell ourselves soothing lies, and avoid the very suffering that might transform us? David Goggins doesn't ask this question from the safety of theory. He lived it every bruise, every scar, every brutal mile. His life isn't just a story of survival. It's a war cry against mediocrity, a call to confront the demons we hide from, and a roadmap for mastering the most elusive battlefield of all, the mind. This is Can't Hurt Me, a raw, relentless memoir by David Goggins, part autobiography, part manual for mental toughness. This book isn't about motivation, it's about transformation. Goggins doesn't sugarcoat the pain. Instead, he drags you through it, showing how suffering, when faced head-on, becomes a weapon. Let's begin with the man himself and the darkness he was born into. David Goggins was not forged in comfort. He was born in Buffalo, New York, in 1975. From the outside, his childhood seemed like any other. But behind the closed doors of his family's skating rink business lay something far more sinister. His father, Toughness, was a violent man. He ran his household like a prison, controlling, abusing, and tormenting David, his brother, and their mother. As a young boy, David would wake before dawn, working long hours in the rink until midnight. He was beaten, overworked, and conditioned to fear everything, especially his father's wrath. There were no bedtime stories, no words of encouragement, just survival. That became his reality. But eventually, David's mother found the courage to escape. They fled to a new town away from Toughness. Yet the shadows didn't vanish. The trauma, the fear, the feelings of worthlessness, they lingered. In school, David struggled. Learning disabilities and untreated trauma made him feel like an outsider. He was one of the only black kids in his Indiana town and endured relentless racism. Slurs, threats, isolation, it all added up. David began to believe the lies others told him, that he wasn't good enough, smart enough, strong enough. He let that belief define him for years. By the time he reached adulthood, he was overweight, depressed, and working as a night shift exterminator. He was trapped not by circumstance, but by a mindset that whispered, "This is all you'll ever be." He had accepted mediocrity because it was easier than fighting for something better. Until one night, something snapped. He saw a Navy SEAL training video on TV. The men in the clip were suffering, pushing their bodies through freezing water and brutal obstacle courses. And yet they weren't broken. They were powerful, unshakable. That moment lit a fire. He decided, I'm going to become a Navy SEAL. It was a ridiculous dream for a man who weighed nearly 300 pounds and could barely run a mile. But Goggins wasn't chasing comfort anymore. He was chasing the man he could be. The first step, losing over 100 pounds in 3 months. 3 months to meet the Navy's weight limit before the SEAL program closed applications for the year. He trained like a madman, running until his legs bled, starving himself, pushing past injuries, doubt, and pain. Every day, he stared into what he called the accountability mirror, where he forced himself to face hard truths. No excuses, no self-pity, just brutal honesty. And he made it. Barely. But that was only the beginning. Navy SEAL training, also known as BUDS, is considered the most grueling military selection program in the world. Most people don't survive Hell Week, a 5-day stretch of sleep deprivation, freezing ocean swims, and non-stop physical punishment. Goggins had to do it 3 times. In his first attempt, he suffered multiple stress fractures and pneumonia. In the second, he was pulled out due to a fractured kneecap. But he kept coming back. Because he wasn't just trying to pass, he was hunting his weakness, dragging it into the light and crushing it. That's what separates Goggins from most people. For him, pain isn't a punishment. It's a proving ground. While most people avoid suffering, Goggins believes it's the path to greatness. The mind, he says, is like a muscle, and the only way to strengthen it is by doing things you hate repeatedly, relentlessly, and without compromise. He calls this callousing the mind. It means embracing discomfort, using every failure as fuel, and pushing when your body screams no. It means choosing suffering not for its own sake, but because it forges discipline, grit, and unshakable belief. After finally becoming a Navy SEAL, Goggins didn't stop. He kept searching for new frontiers of pain. He became an ultra-endurance athlete, running races most people wouldn't dare sign up for. One of his most infamous feats, The San Diego one day, a 100-mile race he ran with zero training. He weighed over 200 pounds at the time. His feet were shattered, his kidneys were shutting down, and he was urinating blood by mile 70. But he didn't quit. He duct-taped his broken legs, shoved down the pain, and finished the race. Not because he wanted a medal, but because quitting wasn't an option anymore. Throughout the first half of Can't Hurt Me, Goggins shares not just his story, but the tools that helped him survive. One of the most powerful? The cookie jar. No, it's not about food. The cookie jar is a mental weapon, a place where you store every victory, every moment you defied the odds. When things get hard, you reach into that jar and remember who you are, what you've already overcome. It's a reminder that pain is temporary, but pride lasts forever. He also talks about the 40% rule, the idea that when your mind tells you you're done, you're really only at 40% of your capacity. The remaining 60%, it's locked behind fear, doubt, and mental fatigue. But it's there, and tapping into it means becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. Goggins isn't interested in perfection. He's not a superhero. He's a man who built strength out of suffering, clarity out of chaos. Every lesson he learned came with a price: blood, sweat, humiliation. But through it all, he discovered something most people never will: that greatness lies on the other side of pain. As the story progresses, Goggins continues to push his limits. He begins to see suffering not just as a personal test, but as a way to inspire others, to show that no matter where you come from, no matter how broken you feel, you can rise. You can rebuild yourself one brutal step at a time. But transformation doesn't happen overnight. And as we move deeper into his journey past Navy SEAL missions, ultramarathons, and record-breaking feats, one question lingers in the background. What happens when the pain no longer scares you? What happens when you run out of excuses and face the version of yourself you were always meant to become? Some people spend their lives running from pain. David Goggins ran into it and through it until it no longer held power over him. By the time he completed his Navy SEAL training and tackled ultramarathons, Goggins had become something most people couldn't define. He wasn't just a soldier or an athlete or a man with incredible discipline. He was the product of relentless reinvention, a walking example of what happens when you strip away excuses, dig deep into suffering, and confront your limits not once, but every single day. But even then, he wasn't finished. After completing the infamous Badwater 135, one of the most demanding foot races on Earth, Goggins set his sights on more than personal victory. He began running to raise money for the families of fallen soldiers. Every race became a tribute, every step a symbol. His pain had found purpose. Still, the body has its limits, and Goggins would test them all. Years of abuse, physical and mental, began catching up to him. His legs bore stress fractures. He suffered heart complications. His weight would drop to dangerous lows, then spike during periods of recovery. At one point, doctors discovered a birth defect in his heart, a hole between the chambers that had gone undiagnosed for years. It meant his heart had been operating at a fraction of its efficiency, even as he was setting records in races most couldn't finish. But Goggins didn't stop. He had discovered something deeper than motivation, something far more enduring than adrenaline. He called it the governor. The governor, he explained, is the mental limiter we all carry. It's the voice that whispers, "You've gone far enough," the inner thermostat that pulls us back toward comfort when things get too hard. But like any limiter, it can be overridden. You can push past it not once, but again and again until your threshold for discomfort is unrecognizable. And that, for Goggins, was the true prize. Not medals, not titles, but freedom, the ability to command his mind, rather than be controlled by it. Throughout the second half of Can't Hurt Me, Goggins shifts from storytelling to introspection. He invites us to examine the soft places in our own minds, the excuses we make, the lies we repeat, the ceilings we place above ourselves. He shares how journaling became one of his tools, not for recording success, but for dissecting failure. Every night, he would reflect, where did I fall short? What can I improve? What am I avoiding? This wasn't a practice of self-punishment. It was a ritual of self-honesty. And then there's the accountability mirror, the same one he used when he was an overweight exterminator dreaming of Navy SEALs. Even after success, Goggins never stopped using it. He kept posting sticky notes with raw, often painful truths. You're slipping. You're making excuses. You're better than this. Because comfort, he believed, was always waiting, always creeping back in. And the only way to defeat it was daily, disciplined confrontation. But Can't Hurt Me is not just a celebration of pain. It's a guidebook for reclaiming control. And within it, Goggins offers challenges to the reader, tasks designed to build mental toughness, like identifying your weakest moments and rewriting the story around them, visualizing your goals and obsessing over them until they become real, practicing the 40% rule every time your body or mind says you're done, keeping a detailed after-action report of failures, not to dwell, but to evolve. Each of these tools is deceptively simple. None require talent. None require wealth. They only ask for one thing: unwavering effort. One of the most powerful parts of Goggins' story comes when he returns to his past, not physically, but emotionally. He confronts the trauma of his childhood, the abuse, the abandonment, and the broken beliefs that nearly destroyed him. He realizes that becoming hard mentally and physically was necessary for survival. But healing, that required vulnerability. Goggins never claims to be healed. He doesn't pretend that pain disappears once you toughen up. Instead, he suggests that mastery over your mind is a lifelong pursuit. Some days you win. Other days you fall short. But every day you show up. That's what separates warriors from the rest. Eventually, Goggins sets a world record for the most pull-ups in 24 hours, over 4,000. But the attempt wasn't about the record itself. It was about showing that even the most audacious goals are possible when broken down into small, brutal steps. He also finds peace in service, mentoring others, speaking to wounded veterans, pushing people past their perceived limits. Because transformation isn't just personal, it becomes contagious. And Goggins, once a scared, silent child, becomes a voice for millions who need to hear that they, too, can rise. As the book draws to a close, one message echoes louder than the rest: you are in control. No matter where you start, no matter how broken, poor, abused, overweight, or overlooked you feel, you can choose a different path. You can become something no one saw coming. But it won't be easy. It never is. There are no shortcuts in Can't Hurt Me. No hacks, no gimmicks. Just raw truth. Suffering is part of life, but it can either break you or build you. And the choice? That's always yours. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, a book that doesn't just tell a story, it challenges you to rewrite your own. If this journey moved you, inspired you, or made you pause and reflect, consider subscribing to hear more stories like this. At NovoBook, we bring you voices that challenge, heal, and awaken something deeper. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your favorite insight from David Goggins' journey? Was it the 40% rule, the accountability mirror, or perhaps the cookie jar of victories? Leave a comment and let us know. And if you found value in this story, feel free to share it with a friend, a fellow runner, or someone facing a battle of their own. Because sometimes a single story is all it takes to change everything. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, and remember, the path to greatness is never easy, but it's always yours to take.